Welcome to Disney A, the Canadian-themed Disney travel podcasts. We're your hosts. I'm Krysta.
And I'm Brandon.
So we are heading back to Disney Plus today.
Ooh.
Yeah, we have a recurring through the decades kind of segment that we do once a month now.
If you didn't know, when you hit the search button on your Disney Plus,
yes,
they have a bunch of different collections. Mm-hmm. One of them is the Disney Through the Decades collection.
Right. And
which is a nice way of looking at like the historical Disney stuff. And, they break it down into the decades.
Exactly.
Weird title. Yeah.
Weird title. And when Disney Plus first came out and I found this, I was like, I'm going to watch everything on there. Problem is, they keep adding stuff. So I kept having to go back and watch like, oh, there's a short cartoon from like 1942 and they added this, so I never made much progress. So then I changed it to the animated features, and that's kind of where this whole idea spawned. We talk more than the animated features, but we kind of do an overview of each decade at Disney. And today we're talking 1950s.
Ooh, that's a big decade.
Yeah, there's a lot happened in the 50s. Before we get to any of that, though, we have a couple things we always talk about at the top of the show. First of all, Brandon, what nerd thing are you currently into this week?
Well, it's pretty super nerdy.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things in 2020, the annual Blizzard gaming convention was canceled.
Right.
Well, postponed.
Yes. To now 2021.
2021. It's normally first week of November.
Right.
And they've rescheduled it, and it's now an online. They cleverly called it BlizzConline.
Nice. You know what? I appreciate a good pun.
Yeah. And
a bad pun even more.
And it's all free, and it was on YouTube, and had it on the big TV.
Sweet.
And watching all the panels about various Blizzard video games that I like to play. So
that's pretty awesome. I watched the intro.
Yes.
To it with you.
Yeah, you were interested to watch it. I was surprised, but
I don't know. I like events, and it's an event.
Yeah. Got a nice remaster of Diablo 2 coming, which
is that your big exciting moment for so far?
Yeah, I mean it was probably the one that was up in the air the most. Most of the other stuff was pretty expected.
Right.
I remember playing Diablo 2 when it came out in 1998. So.
Whoa, you were a young guy.
Yeah.
So you're pretty excited. When did they know when? Just this year?
This year, yeah.
Oh, cool. That's cool. It's a good nerd thing. My nerd thing is not quite as extreme as that, but I was very excited about it. My sister surprised me by sending me a Charmed Aroma candle, and it's Winnie the Pooh.
Aww.
Yeah. So I just got my necklace.
What was the scent of the candle, though?
I think it was like to me it smelled vanilla-y, but I'm sure it was honey.
Yes, it was like honeysuckle or something.
Oh,
like
honeysuckle, that makes more sense than just straight honey. Then it smells really good though, and I love candles and things like that, but a lot of candles I find are really really perfumey. Strong.
No, it smelled
really nice.
Yeah,
it was really nice. Except I was sad because it was the necklace, and to get the necklace you have to burn it, and I was like, but then I won't have the candle. So I got about halfway down and then got my necklace, and it is of course Winnie the Pooh is like very very near and dear to my heart. So I was super psyched about that. Yeah, it was a nice surprise.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, thanks Brittany.
And so then the other thing we talk about, what are you drinking today, Krysta?
Oh, I'm drinking a red wine. You know, I've been on a wine kick while we've been.
Red wine, yes.
It's a Pinot Noir, and it is from the same line that does the blush wine I've been drinking. It's called Basque, and
just gonna bask in some
wine. Bask in it.
Yeah.
I'm a very, very picky red wine drinker. Basically Italy. We talked about Italy lots last episode. It made me like red wine, but I'm still super picky with the red wines I like. But I like Pinots, so that's what I thought I would try today, and it tastes good. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I'm back into the whiskey. This was actually a Christmas gift from El Mule and his lovely wife.
Ah, yes, that's right.
And yeah, it's just a Speyside Scotch whiskey, and it's quite delicious. It's got vanilla, cinnamony notes.
Okay, so I smelled that, and I don't smell vanilla or cinnamon at all. I just smell whiskey.
Well, that's because you do not have my refined palate.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
You did have to take a break from the whiskeys after your advent calendar.
I did.
But now you're back.
I'm back, yeah. like, that was whiskey every single day for almost a month.
Right.
So, yeah, I need a little break.
Fair.
But, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But both very wintry, kind of cozy and with warm, yeah. Another thing, we are recording this on Friday, which means we have just watched the latest WandaVision episode.
Yes!
Yes! Oh, man. I was saying, it's getting really exciting, but I'm getting really concerned because there's 2 episodes left. I'm not necessarily concerned that, like, I don't think they'll end in a good place or anything like that. I just really love WandaVision and I don't want it to end.
You don't want it to end, yeah.
So, spoiler free.
Mm-hmm.
Gut reaction, initial thoughts. What are you thinking?
I think this was a good episode.
Yeah.
They're still kind of setting stuff up.
Yeah.
Like, there was not a whole lot of things answered or anything like that. But
okay, so I feel like there's not a lot of things answered. Some things are set up, but I feel like they're crossing off certain possibilities.
Yeah, maybe process of elimination.
Yeah.
I really liked the style of this one. Going through the decades.
Yep. We're into the 2000s now.
2000s, it was spot on. 2000s sitcom. The titles of these episodes are great in and of themselves.
Right, so that's not spoiler.
Wow.
But the title of this one is Breaking the Fourth Wall, which makes sense. It's really modeled after elements of, like, The Office or Modern Family or something
the mockumentary
like that.
style.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is 2 shows we both really love and like that style a lot. So, yeah. I don't want the show to end.
But we have so much Marvel content to come.
I know, but I'm not ready to say goodbye to WandaVision yet. Okay. That takes us to the news. Disney A News Update.
So the other big Disney Plus item to come out today is they finally put all 5 seasons of The Muppet Show.
Can you hear me clap?
Clap! They'll be slightly edited, I'm sure. There's
Yes.
some musical rights to the original episodes. That is a problem,
that's true.
but it's still all 5 seasons.
Yeah, I don't even think they released all 5 seasons on DVD.
Not that I know of.
I know
You have
the
3.
first 3.
You have 3, yeah. But it's good to be able to at least see them, and I hope it generates some interest in the Muppets again. The Office style, speaking of 2000 sitcoms,
right.
that came out on ABC was actually great, but it never found an audience.
I remember when it first came out, people were excited, and I heard a lot of buzz about the Muppets, and then nothing. It's like people didn't know what to do with it, or I don't know. But we watched it, and it was amazing, and I loved it. So maybe it'll get refound now with this other Muppet content out.
And it is also on Disney Plus as well, so you can check it out.
And that's just called Muppets, I think, with like the
Muppets period or something like that. But yeah, that one's a little more postmodern.
Yes.
And I mean, the Muppets have always been adult, which
very much so.
Maybe people don't realize. Like they don't remember.
You know what? I think, like, we're not as witty or awesome as the Muppets, but it has the same kind of audiences I think we aim to have, whereas kids can listen to it, but adults are the ones who get it.
It's not dirty.
No.
There might be some innuendo.
Right. Yes, that's true.
But, like, yeah, kids can watch it, but adults can get something out of it as well.
It's not like there's profanity or anything in there. But it's geared for an adult audience, I think. And that might be a problem with Muppets in general. You had this weird period where they did like kids movies, and that's kind of when they fell off.
Some bad kids movies.
Not great. I love the Muppets, but guys, come on. So excited about Muppets being on Disney Plus. Are you proud of me for not watching them instead of doing Teachers Convention?
I am, yeah.
I thought that was going to happen.
I thought that might be your nerd thing, is like listening to a bunch of teacher nerd talk all
I was going
week.
to. It's my Teachers Convention right now, and of course it's online, so I've been doing it from the safety of my couch, which is kind of nice because we're in a rural setting. Teachers Convention is mandatory, and it typically means not only driving in February in Canada, which is sometimes an interesting proposition, but also like paying for a hotel room and meals out and things like that. And while it's a good time and there's lots of socialization, not this year.
No socialization this year.
Yeah, in fact, that was one of the last things we did last year. Is you came with me when we did our We made like a weekend out of it kind of thing. Went to Kapaki Games and stuff.
That seems like yesterday and like forever ago at the same time.
Yeah, so crazy.
Yeah.
So yes, I was doing Teachers Convention. That was originally going to be my nerd thing, and then as we were coming down the stairs to record, I saw my candle sitting on the mantle.
And then some other big Disney Plus news, but specific to Canada.
Oh, okay.
Well, and other international markets, I'm not exactly sure which.
Right.
But in Canada, if you don't know, we don't have any Hulu or anything like that, which is partially Disney owned, and they put a lot of their more adult content and Fox stuff that they've bought on Hulu as a streaming service. But instead, they're actually adding a fifth tier, I can count.
Okay.
Yeah, to Disney Plus called Star.
Right.
And it's going to have like the rated R content that they own and things like
Deadpool.
There's a whole bunch of stuff. Glee is going to be on there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Buffy and Firefly.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The X-Files, stuff like that.
Oh, man. Talk about bang for your buck with Disney Plus now, hey?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to raise the price a little bit,
but
we're locked in on an annual plan, so that won't kick in for a while.
Yeah, nice. There would be a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah, lots of movies, the Alien movies.
Oh, fun. So basically, we had heard about Star coming out when they did their big investors call, back at the end of 2020 there. But now we have a date coming.
Yes.
It's right around the corner.
This week.
That's
February
amazing.
23rd.
That's so exciting.
It's going to be on there.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, it's probably good I didn't have Teachers Convention at home. It was enough willpower not to watch the Muppets yet. But, this weekend.
big whack of
that's
content.
That's going to be exciting.
So, yeah.
Speaking of new content, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Golden Girls is coming to Disney Plus.
Oh.
The entire Golden Girls series. I think that's not until later this spring, though. Like, I'm talking like May or something even. I'm not sure.
I'm not going to
exactly.
sing the theme song? Thank you for being a friend. Okay.
I did lots of singing around the house today, actually. My mic was off on my Zoom calls with
Thank
Teachers
goodness.
Convention. I will definitely be singing the song, and I will definitely be watching that series. Well, I mean, we did get details about Walt Disney World's anniversary, but I mean, that's coming way down the line, and we don't focus so much on Disney World.
Disney World, and they're having some festivals and opening stuff up down in California.
Yes,
that's pretty cool.
I guess we did have more or less confirmed, not from Disney specifically, but from multiple sources, as projected and hypothesized. All of DCA is going to be open during... It's not called Food and Wine, but everyone's calling it Food and Wine. This big event.
Wine and food and stuff.
Event that's coming in March. They are going to open up more of the park so people can wander through.
Basically everything but Avengers Campus.
Yes, and of course no rides.
Well, no.
Yeah, but so we did have that confirmed, but we don't have really any official details about that either. As soon as we do, I'm sure we will talk about it though.
Definitely. And the other thing, down in California, they opened up their new Star Wars trading post.
That's right.
In the old building of the Rainforest Cafe.
Which works shockingly well.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't change any of the interior at all. No. You still have the old giant trees and stuff, but they've Star Warsified it, which it works great.
Even some of the netting and stuff like that was working for the jungle kind of theme.
There's jungle areas in Star Wars, so
hello indoor.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah. So they did have it's now open to the public. They did some soft openings with I was going to say AP legacy pass holders. With like a reservation basis, but it is now open to the public. I imagine you are doing quite the wait to get in there though. But yeah, it looks really cool. Nice use of the space, I think.
And some pretty cool merchandise.
Oh, man.
It's probably a good thing I can't go there, because I would be a little poorer.
I wonder what's available online.
Let's pretend nothing.
Okay. I know we were watching. I was like, ooh, I want that. Oh, that looks good. Okay, so I think that brings us to our main topic for today.
Disney Plus and chill.
All right, so the 1950s in Disney. Shocking how many Disney classics came out during this time.
Yeah, it was a big decade for Disney in general. Like, the war was over, so they could focus on producing big things, and of course Disneyland itself was in full swing at this point, like building it and
true.
Getting it ready to go.
That was definitely the focus of, especially early 1950s, where Walt's focus was. So I kind of thought for today we would, to try not to jump around all over the place. I know I like my tangents, but I thought I'd just talk a little bit about overview of what's going on with Walt at the time.
Okay.
And then we'll talk a little bit about Disneyland, and then the features is kind of going to be the focus, just because we are focusing on Disney Plus specifically. So we have some classics that come out in the 1950s, but a lot of critics and people who like study it after the years and years and decades later actually believe that these fantastic films came out during this time, that they were not as critically well done maybe as some of the ones from even the early 1940s. Pinocchio broke all these boundaries with animation and things like that. And they said basically they were wondering if maybe it lacked the attention to detail and the dimension.
A little bit of passion. They're kind of resting on their laurels.
A little bit.
Maybe.
But quite frankly, I mean, if you look at what they come out with while they are resting on their laurels, so to speak.
If only we could all be so mediocre, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Basically, I think he just broke all these expectations with Snow White, and then he was doing all these fantastic things, and then of course the war happened, and they had those strikes we talked about and things like that in the 40s, and they said, well, maybe this kind of fizzled things a little bit, and then because this attention was focused on Disneyland and the whole company, I'm saying he, but Walt's just being the head of Disney, of course.
He's a figurehead. Totally. and kind of they call that the tone at the top.
Okay, yeah.
It's a business theory.
Yeah.
So
explain to me the tone at the top, because I didn't study business.
So it's basically whatever your leadership is thinking, it's gonna trickle down to the employees' general attitudes and everything.
Yeah.
So in Disney's case, your animators are not going to have that same kind of passion without the man in the forest walking through and whipping them into shape and stuff like that.
Nice reference to that. Yeah, I like that. So if you didn't hear our 1940s episode, you should probably listen to it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah,
it'd be a good idea.
And you can figure out what we're talking about there with the man in the forest. Although you probably can figure it out on your own too. But listen to the episode anyway. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. A lot of people do think that, midway through the 50s, once Disneyland, the initial opening push was done, that there was again a return to form. And that was about then that Disney actually established the distribution company Buena Vista Productions. That was in the 50s. I thought it was later, but I was wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the overview of what was up. The focus was on Disneyland, recuperating from the war, things like that. Speaking of Disneyland, 1955 it opens in July. If you look on Disney Plus, you can see a pre-opening special look kind of thing that was an original broadcast.
Yeah, that actually looks pretty cool.
It is really cool. Yeah, I watched it on the anniversary of Disneyland, the 65th anniversary this year.
Seems like something you would do.
Of course it is. Actually, I have watched it's not on Disney Plus, but the original broadcast of opening day. I've watched that several times. It's kind of cool. I was given a copy of one that has the original commercials and everything in the broadcast.
And if you're super into that sort of thing, you can probably find it on YouTube somewhere if you look hard enough.
I'm sure, yeah. And so I've seen that a few times, and this one is pretty cool, and I hope they do put on the original broadcast as well.
It would be smart, but
this one by itself is still quite cool. So check that out. I would recommend that. It is in the 50s section. It isn't through the decades. So speaking of that was shown on, we all think of it as The Wonderful World of Color, but it wasn't called that when it first came out. So in the 50s, tied to Disneyland and things like that, we had Walt Disney's Disneyland was the TV show. And then it became The World of Color in the late 50s. And basically what happened was it was Walt and Roy being like, give us money for Disneyland, please.
Well, the TV network wanted Walt to make them content, and he said, well, I'll make you content if you give me money for my Disneyland.
Talk about smart business, hey?
Oh, yeah.
It's probably Roy's idea.
I think it was Roy's idea. He was the money guy, for sure.
Yeah. And Walt was like, I can do this. So he would do his once-a-week show, and he would have basically a commercial for Disneyland. built into it every time. And he had a focus for each one of the episodes that was based on one of the lands. So it's like, this night's show is on Frontierland, and this night's show is Adventureland, and he would show clips from his upcoming films or past films, short cartoons, and then like, oh, and also let us tell you about Adventureland at Disneyland and what you can do.
That is what they call corporate synergy.
It worked really well, though.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't get away with it these days, but yeah, it was smart.
There's a quotation I like about Elvis Presley, and it was, before anyone did anything, Elvis did everything. And I always think that applies to Disney.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that now, but you could then because no one had done it before. And he was just like, I'm just going to do this.
They had 3 channels back then. So
exactly.
you got basically an ad for movies and a theme park. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting enough to see because you didn't have anything else to see. So, yeah.
The show started the year before Disneyland opened. So it started in 1954, and then it eventually, after Disneyland had opened, and he just continued it on through the 60s, and that became World of Color, which is what most people think of it as, but it actually went through many iterations. But yeah, that's kind of cool. That was a big thing in the 50s as well. And a lot of people do think that Disney's focus being on Disneyland and content was moved towards like these short things that could fit into these television.
Yeah, and even the more live action stuff that came
Absolutely.
out, like Davy Crockett, came from that. So
sure did. Yeah, that was basically created for World of Color. Well, Disneyland, and then became World of Color. He had a lot of, he was really interested in nature documentaries as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of nature the Disney Adventures or
True Life Adventures. Yeah. I've seen all of them.
Which is where the myth of the lemmings comes from.
That is true.
It's a bit of a dark story where they herded lemmings off a cliff to film it, and then said, "Oh yeah, lemmings do this." So that's interesting.
Yeah. There's also, and I saw it on Disney Plus, you can watch Perry. And I was explaining this to Brandon.
Hey, where's Perry?
Exactly. Different Perry.
That's different.
You can watch Perry, and Perry is based on a children's book, that is written by the same author who wrote Bambi. But Perry was done live action, and Bambi was done animated. One of them we have heard about, and the other one is not quite so famous. I did watch it a few years ago. I don't think you've ever seen Perry, though, hey?
No. I saw the thumbnail, and I was like, why is there a squirrel on... Like,
he's not a platypus. What the heck?
Yeah, he's not a platypus at all.
It's
very strange.
It is done more like documentary style, I guess. I don't know. It's Bambi worked better, I think. But you can watch it, and I do think it's interesting to do the comparison there.
Yeah, okay.
There's classics happen in the 50s. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea happened in the 1950s. That was a big one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't aged well, obviously.
Really, no.
And you don't... They don't have the ride anymore or anything like that. Yeah. But the Nautilus is cool, and the special effects back then were super cool. So,
other one, well, Treasure Island came out then.
Oh yeah.
The Shaggy Dog came out then. I keep talking about Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and you've never seen it, and I probably haven't seen it since I was, 8 or 9 or something like that. I really want to watch again. It is on Disney Plus. We are going to watch that movie. I'm going to make you watch that with me.
Oh, good.
You were not super happy with me making you watch Babes in Toyland?
No, I was not.
I hope Darby O'Gill and the Little People work better. This one does have young Sean Connery.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. And then the other thing I noticed is they have a lot of Chip and Dale.
Yes, they
do. 50s.
Yes, they do. I was going to talk about short films.
I think they debuted in the 40s, but
right at the end of the 40s.
But they became
48, 49. They became their own.
Yeah.
Like they had Chip and Dale cartoons as opposed to interfering with Mickey and interfering with Donald. Mostly Donald.
Yeah. Because getting Donald upset is always fun.
Oh, so fun. And one of my favorite Christmas cartoons is in the 50s, and that's the Christmas tree. And it's Pluto's Christmas tree, even though it is Chip and Dale are involved with that as well. Yeah. Did you watch that one this year? That's one I watch almost every year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
I almost forgot to mention one of the other big live action ones that came out. Old Yeller came out in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, some big ones there.
That's not a happy film.
No, it's not.
No.
So let's go back to talking about the short ones.
Okay.
Chip and Dale, you mentioned. I was talking about Humphrey the Bear.
Yeah,
and you had no idea what I was talking about.
Literally never heard of this thing. So we watched one today.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this strikes me as very Looney Tunes.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Very slapstick. He's there to upset poor Donald.
Yep.
And
the Ranger.
Yeah, the Rangers didn't seem
as
upset.
The cartoons continue, the Ranger's a little bit more of a thing.
It's like maybe competing with Yogi Bear as well.
Very similar, yeah.
I don't know. There's a reason he's not around anymore, I guess. Because it wasn't very good, but that's fine.
Before we start talking animated features, we also watched another short, which was one of the awesome short cartoons that Disney has ever done. So happy to hear that it was also one of your favorites, because I watched Lambert all the time.
Lambert.
And also, that is one that I sang the entire song of, and then immediately was like, why do I know all the words to this song?
Wasting brain space on the lyrics to this song from the 50s. But yeah, no,
it's probably like my high school math. I didn't need that anyway.
I had Lambert on some VHS tape with a bunch of other things that was taped off a satellite dish feed or something like that. And yeah, Lambert's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. For me, it was also taped off of, I think, the cartoon, Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
And it was right beside Ferdinand the Bull.
I think mine might have been as well. I don't know. I remembered Lambert quite a bit.
Yeah.
And Winnie the Pooh on there or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And do you remember the commercial breaks? It was like Mickey Mouse's hands was pushing a grocery cart, and he'd like pull things off the grocery shelves. Do you remember this?
No.
Okay, well, you also don't remember the weird live-action Winnie the Pooh thing I made you watch, the intro to that time.
I think I blocked that from my memory because that was absolutely terrifying.
It was like mascots.
Yeah, no, we don't want to talk about that.
And one thing, also before we get to the animated features, that I really appreciate is we are now into the era, we've caught up to Wandavision episodes.
Yeah, it's true. Yes, this is when Wandavision starts. So.
Yes, so, shout out to 1950s TV that way,
Leave
right?
It to Beaver
exactly.
and Andy Griffith Show and all that good stuff.
And what did you say, Davy Crockett and the Walt Disney's Disneyland. So let's want to talk animated features? I think that's what we're going to kind of focus on
Sure.
today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the big stuff.
It is, and like we said, we're kind of doing as through the decades. So let's start with the first one.
How about you run through what all was released in the 50s and refresh my memory?
Oh boy, all of it.
just the animated features.
Just the animated
there wasn't
features?
that many.
Okay. So let's start 1950.
On the nose.
Good time to start. Cinderella.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I thought that was kind of like more...
I did too, but I was wrong.
It's just like, right?
Which is interesting because Disney World modeled their castle after Cinderella, but Disneyland didn't.
Oh, they wanted the new fancy thing,
They
and
did.
like Sleeping Beauty wasn't out yet
Nope.
when they built
that
the
was
castle.
quite the gamble.
Yeah, it was.
That was a gamble within a gamble, basically. I do want to talk about Disneyland a little bit more here in a bit,
Sure,
but we're going to talk about that. We're getting there. Okay. So 1950 was Cinderella.
Okay.
1951, Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
1952, we had some little things. 1953, though, we had Peter Pan. 1954, we had some shorts because we were kind of busy in 54, leading up to 1955, where we not only had Disneyland opening, we also had The Lady and the Tramp.
Oh.
Then, he breathed in 56 and 57. But all of it was leading up to Sleeping Beauty in 1959. So not only did they build the centerpiece of Disneyland as this castle that no one had seen before, but they weren't going to see it for several more years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Right?
That's a long time.
Yeah. So, kind of a gamble.
Yeah. You wouldn't get away with that today.
No,
imagine,
you really can't.
Imagine building a ride based on a movie that wasn't going to come out for 4 years in Disneyland today.
No, that's just like you can't do that.
You
do
shouldn't even plan to build a ride on a movie that hasn't come out yet that you're going to finish.
It's true.
Like they did with, say, Dinosaur or something like that.
Yeah, you gotta. If you're gonna gamble, be cautious. I guess would be the thing. So let's go back to the beginning of the 50s.
Sure.
Let's talk Cinderella.
Okay.
First of all, talk about a classic movie.
Oh, I mean, if you're gonna let me pick one from the 50s, this is gonna be the one.
Of course.
Sleeping Beauty might be more technically well done, but Cinderella is a better movie.
Oh, definitely. On our wedding cake topper, I was represented by a Cinderella doll.
You were. Who was I represented
you were
by?
Han Solo.
Oh.
And you actually used one of your original toys from when you were a kid to get Han Solo.
I did, yeah.
I remember because you went down to find the toy. You were gone for a long time in your parents' basement. Your mom and I went looking for you and found you sitting cross-legged playing with, I don't know what it was, maybe the Millennium Falcon going.
Oh, yeah.
All I heard was when we were coming down the stairs was pew, 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 pew. And so you picked a Han Solo to be on our wedding cake, and I picked a little Cinderella doll to be on it for me. Cinderella is classic. It has what was, I think, widely known as Walt's favorite piece of animation from any film he worked on. And you know what it is. It's not the trivia today.
Oh, okay.
It's the transformation from Cinderella's ball gown. It is beautiful. Plus, I mean, when you're talking... Okay, yes, 1940s, you had Pinocchio with When You Wish Upon a Star and things like that, but do you get more quintessential than Bippity Boppity Boo? Or A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes?
That I would say would be quintessential for sure. And you got your nice little Disney sidekicks with the mice. Of course
you do. Gus, Gus, and Jacques.
Oh, so adorable.
They're fantastic. When you want to talk about, like, stock characters... Prince Charming's name is literally Prince Charming. Yeah,
they were really thought outside the box with that one. But that's fine. That wasn't the focus of that movie.
No, it was not. I love, Lady Tremaine is such a fabulous villainess, and I love the stepsisters, and
they gave more character to the king's advisor than they did the prince. Like the prince was literally less important than the glass slipper.
It's true. The glass slipper had more personality than the prince. The prince was a prince and had a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But, Cinderella is fantastic, and she is, Snow White may have been the first one, and like you said, Sleeping Beauty might be more technically, artistically well done, but when I'm thinking Disney princess, I'm thinking Cinderella in that gown. I've never wanted glass slippers, but, I blame my love of shoes in Cinderella.
Yeah. I mean, glass slipper does not sound very comfortable.
And I'm kind of annoyed. We were talking when we talked the 30s about woodland creatures not cleaning my house. They've also never made me an article of clothing.
Yeah, that's kind of rude,
right?
Come on,
I sing to them all the time.
Freya,
come here, Jess. Come here, Freya.
Get working.
Those are our dogs. But okay, let's move on. Because 1951, we have Alice in Wonderland. And we just rewatched this, actually.
Yeah, well, it had been many, many years. And I don't think I had seen this very much. It was not on my rotation of Disney movies to watch as a child. Yeah. There's probably a good reason for that. I mean, the source material is really weird. And they fully embraced that. Yeah. In this movie.
They really did. So I actually took a university course where we spent like a month studying the original works for the Alice in Wonderland, the 2 books that it was based on, and the author and the whole backstory and everything like that. It was weird then too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And there was much controversy around.
Well, yes, you can go into all the stuff about the author.
I'm not going to.
His penchant for little girls and things like that. So
and photography.
It's interesting. It was a film that didn't feature a princess. Do you know why Alice didn't qualify as a princess other than the lack of royalty?
I was just assuming she wasn't royalty.
Well, she didn't pass the drug test.
That makes sense. I don't know. If I'm falling asleep and I'm having dreams like that, I'm a little concerned when I wake up. Maybe I was not a very imaginative child, but like, it's concerning.
Very strange.
Yeah, it is concerning. And I understand this idea of, just sending in, she's safe. It's in her mind and everything like that, we hope, that she's, going on this fantastical adventure. It's super like piece joint, separate, segmented words.
It has the problem that some of the subsequent Disney films also have, such as Robin Hood and Jungle Book, where it's almost like little flashes rather than a like cohesive story.
Right. I think this one suffers from it more though, because in Robin Hood, Jungle Book does as well, but there's at least something tying them together. Where I understand that this one is, but because it's also so incredibly fantastical, it seems much more disjointed, at least to me. I think it probably worked really well when it was shown in segments, which is how it actually found success on the Disneyland TV show.
Yeah.
When it was first released, it was kind of I mean, people, liked it. Little kids liked it. It was fun and colorful and things like that. And people who loved the original stories, of course, liked seeing an animated version of that. But it didn't, it wasn't going to be as successful as, say, Pinocchio or something that. It's
not as an easy story to follow, but...
And, of course, like you said, it wasn't a Disney princess one either. I mean, to date, we hadn't had, we had Snow White and Cinderella, essentially. But it had just followed Cinderella, which was, it was Cinderella.
Very, very princessy.
You're following Cinderella. Mm-hmm. There was also this, I don't really know what to make of it kind of thing. But
I still don't.
I still don't either.
I just watched it and I still don't. I don't know.
But since it is done in such little sections, they could show one section on this TV show.
Right.
And it was much more accessible that way. So it provided an entry point for kids to watch and like these ridiculous characters that exist only to be ridiculous and fantastical and nonsensical.
I'm just sad that they didn't have a Jabberwocky.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I do like the quotations from the poem.
Oh,
I enjoy that a lot.
So the Cheshire Cat, though, in this is just awesome.
Isn't the Cheshire Cat fantastic?
It's so good.
Okay, there's two amazing parts of this movie. One is the Cheshire Cat. I will 100% totally give it to you. It is not just because of who voices him. It? Does Cheshire Cat have a gender?
Well,
I mean, it's male voicing, but I mean,
I think it's a male cat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay, well, anyway, and the Mad Tea Party is fantastic. There's a reason these are the two most famous parts of this movie.
You see the clips of that all the time, and
yeah, it's perfect. And I love the style of Mary Blair, so you can really see that influence there. But I like it. I appreciate it. Not my favorite Disney animated movie. Not even probably top 10.
No. And there's some bad ones, so.
Shout out to Cheshire Cat, though.
Yeah. Cheshire Cat's awesome.
And, like we were saying, I do love the nods to the source material.
Yeah. I think they did a good job of adapting. It's just weird stories, so what can you do?
Yeah, two weird stories that they kind of smushed into one.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's leave 1951. We had some, shorter ones and different things like that. But in 1953, then, we have Peter Pan. Now, again, not a Disney princess movie.
No.
They've had more non-princess movies than princess movies at this point.
It's true. But, you do have those strong female characters in there. But this one, Peter Pan is the title character, so, boys have something to identify with. And
the Lost Boys, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a bit of an easier plot to follow.
Yes.
Some wish fulfillment for children.
Yeah.
So
every kid wants to fly, right? Except me. I never wanted to fly.
Well, you got your flying and you're not having adults tell you what to do anymore kind of thing.
Till Wendy comes along and ruins all their fun.
Well, yeah, Wendy is kind of a jerk that way.
But the point, okay,
anyway, and you also have the unfortunate Native American content, but
ooh, yeah, that's so parts of these classic movies do not age well. This is a big one.
Yeah. I mean, you had a lot of smoking in Alice in Wonderland,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
Nothing explicitly racist.
No, and the thing is, so the character of Tiger Lily, actually is quite an awesome character. Mm-hmm. I'm very curious to see what they do with the new movie coming out. The character of Tiger Lily is the actress who's playing Tiger Lily is Canadian.
Right, yes.
And Albertan, actually.
Yeah.
So
Native Canadian.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right. Yeah,
so that's, I'm going to be watching out for her, but I'm curious to see what they do with that to kind of update it and, make it a little bit more not 1950s.
Yeah. Say no more.
Yeah. So that part did not age well. But, the story is beautifully told. And
it's got good animation.
It does.
And Captain Hook's a great villain.
He's a fantastic villain. He's fabulous.
And it turned into a pretty good little ride in Disneyland at the same time.
I wanted to get to that. Yeah. So that is an opening day attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, obviously a lot, the ride itself has changed significantly since then, but the basic principle has stayed the same, that you are in the pirate ship and you are flying over London and over Neverland and everything like that. It is one of the rides that has the most terrible wait time, but one of my favorite rides in all of Disneyland. It is beautiful,
really?
And I love it. And you know what? I have distinct memories of riding it being 6 years old and being, in my 20s. And I loved it every time. Don't necessarily like the long, time your wait times appropriately.
Yeah,
That's when you want to hit during parades or opening.
You got to be strategic.
Your Magic Mornings, when they have those again, hopefully.
You got to be strategic. You go at rope drop or when the fireworks are on or something like that, because otherwise you're wasting a whole lot of your Disney day
when we did
on a kid's ride, which is not something I want to do.
When we did Fantasyland together, that was when we hit.
Yeah.
And we hit rope drop. And it was that first hour, I think we did all of the Fantasyland rides, including Matterhorn. Because
families tend to not hit rope drop, so Fantasyland is a good place to go if you want to see that.
Yeah.
You want to ride all those dark rides and
not trip over strollers and everything like that, let alone most of those rides don't have, fast passes and things like that either, right? So you have to time it appropriately.
Absolutely not. They don't. So, yeah.
When you're talking classic Disney, and I think I do eventually want to do an episode on just like going to Disneyland now and what you can do that's like classic Disneyland, like referencing opening day, this would totally make the list.
Absolutely.
100%. Great ride. And great movie. Plus, I have a tattoo from this movie.
Oh, you do indeed.
I thought you were sounding surprised. You're like, oh, you do you? I was like,
no,
it's on my arm.
I was like, what? No, you don't have Peter Pan. Oh, no, wait. I remember now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know why I rolled up my sleeve. You can't see them.
I can. I'll poke them.
Okay. Well, they're not new. They don't hurt. It was an impromptu tattoo with my mom, sister, and my sister-in-law, and I got the Neverland star, and the second star to the right.
Yeah,
the 2 stars. So I kind of love that. Yeah, even though Peter Pan it's not my favorite Disney movie, but I like the emotion and stuff behind it,
and the literary factor and all that.
I was like, give me a book and Disney reference at the same time. I'm super happy about that. Yeah. So Peter Pan comes out of built-in ride essentially, and then Walt's focus is kind of on Disneyland, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
But 55, the month before, in June 1955, he comes out with Lady and the Tramp, and critics went crazy for Lady and the Tramp.
Dogs. Everybody loves dogs.
Well, that's true.
Every good person loves
dogs.
That's
true. That is true. Yeah, so I'll give you that one.
I try not to judge people, but if you say you don't like dogs, I go, what's wrong with that person?
I will give you, I'm more of a cat person than a dog person. I'll give you that.
Sure.
Or, I wish I could have a dog, I'm allergic. Or my apartment doesn't allow it. Or something like that.
I know plenty of allergic people who love dogs.
And who have dogs.
Yeah. You can fight through the pain for the love of a dog.
We have 2 dogs that are fairly large.
Yes.
One is a golden retriever and one is a Bernese mountain dog. The Bernese comes up higher than my hip.
She's almost as tall as I am.
I know, when she stands up, her paws go on Brandon. Brandon is 6'6". That's an idea. So, big dogs.
Big dog.
Big, fluffy, hairy dogs. We are dog fans. And so you have this Lady and the Tramp movie. I always loved this movie.
I did too. I mean, Tramp is a cool character.
Peggy Lee sings a song in it? Come on.
Yeah, it's got cool little musical notes, and just that spaghetti scene, of course, is always going to be classic.
Of course.
Yeah.
We have a reference to this movie in our house. In the guest room in our house.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
I did some little artwork, and I have that it's a lovely Bella Notte. That scene is just so beautiful, right? Come on now. And when did spaghetti, which is like the messiest food to eat, become romantic? Thanks, Lady in the Tramp.
Yeah. It wouldn't strike you as romantic, but
but now
thanks,
it
Disney.
is. Yeah, thanks, Disney. Okay, and then Sleeping Beauty, 1959. Now, before we talk about this too much, yes, it is the centerpiece of Disneyland, the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Snow White are the three original. They're the OG Disney princesses, right? And I always find Snow White is in her own little category because she invented the category.
Yeah,
and then you have
super early.
Yeah, that was 20 years before this, right? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty coming out in the same decade. Okay, yes, there's 9 years difference between them. You can tell there's a significant difference in the animation styles, but they're always kind of in the same category for me, except Cinderella seems so vastly popular to Sleeping Beauty.
Well, that's because Sleeping Beauty is asleep for a large portion of the story.
It is true.
She doesn't have a personality. Her personality is that she's pretty, which great.
That's what I'm thinking. That I was wondering your opinion about is it the movie that's different, or is it the character, like the titular character being, the reason why one is so much more popular than the other one?
I think the plot does not do her a good service as, her whole purpose for being is to be Sleeping Beauty. So, that's not a great start for a round character.
Right. That's totally true.
I do like Sleeping Beauty. The climax with the dragon is like one of the best pieces of animation you'll see.
Done. Fantastic.
And the fairies are great.
Yep.
I love the combativeness of them and their
Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather.
Yeah, and they
Flora and Merryweather, I guess, are the combative ones, but yeah.
They care for Aurora, but they don't like each other very much.
And they're fairly incompetent.
Yeah, and they're fairly incompetent,
one of them is incompetent. But gosh darn it, they try.
They try, and of course Maleficent is a great villain. Probably didn't need 2 movies of her own, but that's a whole nother story.
We've talked about that. We could talk about it again. We probably will. But yes. One thing I love watching this movie, as an adult, I probably like it more than I liked it as a child. As a child, second best dance scene. Actually, I think it beats out Cinderella for me. My favorite dance scene is Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the make it pink, make it blue, and her dress changes the whole time is just fantastic. Because, what's better than, a guy who gives you a library and then you do a big waltz under this fantastic chandelier to have a magical dress. That's fantastic. Now, the dance
Cinderella had a magical dress.
She did, and she had magical shoes. But most of their scene, yes, they dance, but most of it is actually the walking in the gardens. And so I don't even really think of it so much as the dance scene. The beautiful thing is like, we're walking through the gardens and the fountains and things like that.
I'm sorry, I still focus on the dragon, I guess.
That's fine. But, so Sleeping Beauty had that, there's a dragon, and I always loved the fairies and everything. But as an adult watching it, the Gothic art in it, I appreciate so much more than I ever would have as a child. So while it's not beating out Cinderella, it's not coming close to Cinderella for me. First of all, the prince is much better, but the movie is not called Prince Philip.
No,
it's called Sleeping Beauty. It isn't even. She doesn't even get her name in it, right?
Her name's not important.
Right.
She's pretty.
Yeah.
And she can't say no. So,
yeah, so there is that issue there too. Have you ever read the original?
Oh,
it's like different level messed up.
I mean, the original Grimm's Brothers fairy tales are awesome,
and
but
terrible,
like, super disturbing.
Yeah.
So
this is like the next level terrible. Yeah. So, it's better than that.
Yeah.
Low bar. Super low bar. But it's beautifully, beautifully done. It's,
and like you say, the gothic style, gothic architecture, is one of my favorite architectural styles.
Right,
so
me
seeing
too.
that
I agree.
in a fantasy setting is that's cool.
I really, really love the artwork for this. So even though, the story isn't my favorite, although I do love serious elements of the story, just like the artwork is so insane. Also, you get the dragon in Disneyland now as part of Fantasmic.
Yeah.
Which is pretty great.
That's pretty cool. And this one, it didn't have any sidekicks. Maybe that's the main problem.
Well, unless you count the fairies.
Yeah, they're not really...
They're not the same. Although, I also love the Raven, Maleficent's Raven, even though it's not
I guess that was the sidekick. It was just the villain's sidekick.
Yeah. I love her as a villain, and... Yeah, I don't know. It didn't quite... It's fantastic. I love it. But if I'm comparing it to Cinderella, which everyone else does, for me as well, it isn't Cinderella. And I think it's because it's named Sleeping Beauty. So, like I said, I want my heroine then to be a heroine and not asleep.
Yeah. Well, that's the story. So.
I know, but it's beautiful. And it is the, prince... Okay. I'm not going to go crazy here, but... Disney princes get this... There's this idea that, in these fairy tales, the prince needs to come in and save the princess. If you actually break it down, that happens a fair bit. It doesn't happen all the time. Cinderella's, little mice save the day more than the prince does. He, offers her... he marries her, but... She still would have been locked up in the attic. He's not the one who... He doesn't even try the shoe on her on his own, right? He sends his,
his little footman or whatever.
So I don't even think it's his footman. I think it's the king's footman.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be his,
right? And then, yes, you get in Snow White. She's, lying inert, and the prince has to save her. But Prince Philip, literally, he just shows up. He doesn't do anything other than kiss her. The dwarves are the ones who actually defeat the villain, right? It isn't until you get Sleeping Beauty where you have the prince actually doing something.
He's an actual knight in shining armor.
He actually is. Yeah. I mean, mine's the shining armor, but he actually is an active participant in the story.
Slay some dragons and stuff.
Literally slice the dragon.
That's pretty cool.
Again, you have the fairies who here is this magical sword, and here is this magical shield, and let us help you out of this dungeon, and everything like that, but he's actually still actively participating in it while she's lying inert as well.
Lying inert. That might be an episode title right there.
Okay. Well, it is now.
So that was the animated features for this decade.
Yeah, that was because that takes us to 1959. I still cannot believe that not only did Disney do this absolutely crazy thing by building Disneyland, everyone called Snow White Disney's Folly. This was right up there, basically almost bankrupted them again.
They were dancing with bankruptcy all through the 50s.
Totally. So, and then he says, you know what is going to be even crazier? Let's make a centerpiece. You know what's going to be even crazier than making this big, fancy, expensive centerpiece? Let's do it based on a movie no one has seen yet. You know what? Not even one coming out in the next year or two. 4 years from now.
Well, I wonder how much it was delayed.
Yeah, that's true.
It was probably planned to come out. There was a big gap of nothing coming out, so I'm sure it was probably delayed somehow.
Well, stuff came out. I mean, Old Yeller came out during that time.
Right, like live action and...
Well, you're talking animated.
You'd have different divisions working on those things, I'm sure.
So, let's just talk very briefly now. Disneyland opening in 1955.
Nothing worked.
I was gonna say... The quotation from Jurassic Park drives me crazy.
I love how crazy it drives you, yes.
It's wrong. So the quotation is when Disneyland opened in 1956, nothing worked. He says, yeah, but John... Wow, I've seen this movie a lot. Not as many times as you, I know. But John, when Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists. Pirates wasn't even in, not even in the 50s at all.
Yeah.
It was the last ride Walt worked on, like, many, many years later.
But the whole thing, he doesn't care about that.
And it didn't open in the 56.
It's a character saying it. It's not an encyclopedia, right?
But it's wrong.
Okay. Anyway, that's a great quote, and that's a great movie.
Yeah.
Not a Disney movie, but that's fine.
No, but it's great. But it references a Disney movie. But it's true. Nothing worked in 1955 when they opened. In fact, it was, first of all, they opened in July.
Didn't they have, like, wet paint and stuff like that?
And cement. The women, okay, when we go to theme parks, we dress differently than they did in 1955.
Except on Dapper
Day. So the women in their heels, I swear, watch, if you can find the original broadcast, watch this broadcast. It's crazy. They're in their beautiful dresses and skirts and everything like that, and high heels, which kept sinking into the wet cement because it had just been poured. It would have maybe been dry if it wasn't, I don't know, California July.
Yeah.
So it was so hot.
Heat and concrete do not mix.
Take a lot longer to... the plumbing... this is the famous story, is that they couldn't get the plumbing for both the bathrooms and the water fountains to work. And so they asked Walt, like, what do we do? And he says, people can buy Coke. And so they got the water to the bathrooms to work, but they couldn't get the water fountains to work. Yeah, just like one thing went wrong on top of another. There was issues with broadcasting. There were issues with the initial setup and things like that. And it was a resounding success no matter what. Mm-hmm. Like... You would expect to hear there were all these problems before they even started. They basically opened this entire park that had never been done before in less time than it takes them to do one ride now. Right? This whole thing.
And for less money.
And much significantly.
I mean, inflation aside,
yeah.
It was...
Even accounting for inflation, yeah.
Comparatively not that expensive.
True. And
for what they did.
Yes, they did. There were corners that were cut. They did a lot of literally cardboard corners that were cut for some things. But it was a resounding success, even with all of these problems and things like that. So even now, it spawned all of the other Disney parks, which just keeps this Disney... like, at the risk of sounding incredibly cliche, like Disney magic, this identity alive and very real for so many people, and so much so that we are having a podcast about it in 2021.
Yeah. It's hard to put yourself in the mindset of someone in the 50s, when they had World's Fairs were the big thing.
That's true.
Which of course Disney was super into when it came to New York. But,
yes. Talk about World's Fairs, I think.
Yeah, maybe do a World Fair episode. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Maybe sandwich there in the 60s or something, maybe.
And like your county fairs where you had like a merry-go-round, maybe.
A merry-go-round, kind of like the one that Walt was inspired by.
Yeah, but
where he took the horses and then put them in Disneyland.
But like you didn't have this kind of entertainment.
Yeah,
that's probably why it was so successful. It was just something no one had heard of or seen before.
Yeah. Well, the story goes Walt would take his daughters to like a fair, and he would watch them on the merry-go-round and be like, "This is really cool. I wish there was like more for me, like more that we could do together as a family, where we're all invested in the same thing." So you took that, plus you took his like renowned love of trains. I mean, dude built like a mini train set in his backyard.
He did love his trains, yeah.
And he smushed them together and was like, now let's also add movies into there with all these movies I've been making. And yeah, it was just this crazy thing that totally worked and expanded and grew beyond anything at all. Totally get teary-eyed listening to that opening day speech that, here you leave today and you enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, but that's, of course, the big famous part.
Yes, very famous.
Yeah. So just before we move on to trivia and things like that, 50s overview. I mean, we focus on Disneyland as our home park from another country. So that was a pretty big decade. But as far as the movies go, which of these ones do you think is your favorite? You have Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Lady and the Tramp. I mean, you can even talk about the live-action ones if you wanted to bring in Old Yeller or 20,000 Leagues. Oh, the Shaggy Dog original came out during this time.
No, it's Cinderella.
Yeah.
It's not the most manly movie in the world, but I love the mice.
I'm surprised when you're talking about things you love in Cinderella, you didn't mention the cat.
The cat, it's not my favorite Disney cat.
But he has the best name.
He does have the best name.
Lucifer.
Lucifer is a great cat name because... Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, it describes cats.
We also have cats.
No, I actually like the cat in Pinocchio a lot more. But,
Figaro.
Yeah, Figaro. Figaro's adorable.
Yeah, Figaro is adorable. Figaro's serious personality, too.
But no, I had pet mice when I was growing up, so...
Right. Did you ever name one of them after...
I did not. No, I named most of them after Redwall characters. And if you haven't heard of Redwall, that's actually getting a Netflix series coming out.
Not Disney, but
Not
definitely
Disney, but
pop culture nerdy thing.
Yeah. Redwall is great. So
do you know I've never read Redwall?
Redwall.
I've never read the Redwall books. Know nothing about them.
It's cool. It's fantasy, but like all the characters are animals,
which is very cool. Yeah. I didn't actually read like a lot of... I read a lot, but I didn't read a lot of like children's lit, I guess. So, yeah. I read Anne of Green Gables books and, Babysitter Club.
Right. No, I read The Hobbit and Redwall.
Yeah. And then I read, like Jane Eyre and Shakespeare because I'm a nerd. So Redwall. Yes, so you named them after that. And then you actually had a pet mouse when I met you. Yeah. Or shortly after I met you.
I did not name that. I named that after Jack Daniels.
Yes, you did. Because you were in university.
I was drinking Jack Daniels, and I said, hey, I should buy another mouse.
You should. Did you know that a friend of ours who was actually bridesmaid at our wedding, her... their family cat growing up, or when she was at a university or something like that, was named Gus Gus.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, Gus Gus specifically. I was just like, that's a good cat name too.
He was a chunky cat. Yeah. It was a well-suited name.
Yeah. I agree. Cinderella.
Yeah, I did. Peter Pan's fine. That would be my second choice.
Peter Pan is beautifully done. Sleeping Beauty is beautifully done. Lady and the Tramp is just so fun.
I like, Lady and the Tramp's good as well because dogs are awesome.
Totally.
Sleeping Beauty has the best animation, but Cinderella is far and away the best.
I agree.
There's only a couple Disney movies that are better than it in general.
Yeah. We should one day do like a huge ranking. I don't know how we would. I agree. If I'm going to pick a Disney princess to be, Cinderella would be my second choice, which is pretty high praise for me.
Yeah, I mean, especially 1950.
That's right.
She's pretty empowered. Despite all the emotional and physical abuse that she undergoes.
In the live action, we talked about it, and she does get a catchphrase thing in the live action, which is have courage and be kind. And I just really like that. And I think for all of the problems I have with all of the live action ones, or not necessarily problems, but just like they're fine. I do think that sentiment really applies to her and makes... that actually does add to the character as a whole. So I like that. Yep, I agree. Awesome. Fantastic. So I think that brings us to trivia. Yeah.
So, I mean, this was a really super classic Disney-centric episode.
Yeah.
So you begged me to ask me questions.
What actually happened, we were watching Alice in Wonderland, and I was like, I could come up with trivia for just Alice in Wonderland. And then we'd be watching, and I'd look at it and be like 10 questions just from this show, little. Finally, Brian was just like, just ask the questions. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to Marvel and Star Wars, and I'll ask you questions. How about that?
You know what? Oh, yeah. Okay, that's fair. Before we get to that, though, I asked you questions last week about DCA because that was more of our news segment. So our first question was about the mailboxes in DCA. I started out really hard. I will give you that for sure. So, first of all, this is what you said.
Disney.
This might shock you. You were wrong.
Yeah, well...
Weird.
What do you want from me?
All right, so I asked you just to name one of the characters. There's actually 4. Names on these mailboxes. So from left to right, they read S. Yoshiwara.
Wow.
E. Valiant. That might sound familiar.
No.
It's going to when I explain it. T. Ogilvy and P. Peabody. So Stacy Yoshiwara was a devoted Disney fan and former cast member who passed away just before Buena Vista Street's completion. E. Valiant is named after Eddie Valiant, the drunken detective played by Bob Hoskins in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Which I thought was like on Bonavista Street, but I guess it's that era, right?
Yeah, that was it was supposed to be classic Hollywood in
Right.
Roger Rabbit. That makes sense,
Yeah.
but that's a deep cut. Like,
So that's the one that I read that I was like, really? So that's...
it's interesting. That's difficult.
Oh, no. Honestly, the mailbox is one I didn't expect you to know. Don't stress about that. I just found... Of them, I found the Eddie Valiant one, like, just super interesting. And I was just like, I just want Brandon to know that. And so I could tell you that. So the other one is Theodore Ogilvy, Don Knotts' character from Walt Disney's The Apple Dumpling Gang.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then The Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again. I've never seen those.
No.
I know
Don Knotts is hilarious, though. Yeah.
But I've never actually seen those ones. However, that was 75 and 82, so when we get to those decades, let's watch them. P. Peabody is P.V. Peabody, Cliff Secord's best friend and expert mechanic from Walt Disney Studios' The Rocketeer in 1991. Again, based in that classic Hollywood era.
The Rocketeer is a good movie, which you've never seen.
I've never seen it.
I quite enjoyed that one, actually.
So, that is those. But I thought Eddie Valiant was, like, super cool. And,
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
just a random...
There needs to be more Roger Rabbit content.
I totally concur.
That they're making all these reboots and remakes and stuff.
Yeah.
Go back to Roger Rabbit.
Roger Rabbit stands fantastically on its own, but yeah, it needs to be readdressed. It needs to be re-released. It needs to be something, because it is a fantastic movie that is seriously underappreciated.
Yeah, I think people forget about it. Like, and the movie itself doesn't need to be remade because it's perfect the way it is.
No. Yeah, I'll give you that.
But just that character needs to have more life. Like,
Agreed.
reuse it. Like,
Agreed.
He's great,
cool.
and it's
they
a cool
tried
world. Like
a little bit.
Toontown. Not the crappy part of Disneyland, but the Toontown in Roger Rabbit is just a great concept.
It's like, well, we'll talk about Toontown, I'm sure. We have, and we will again. It's like they wanted to do Roger Rabbit, but they also wanted to do the Mickey and
Mouse,
Minnie's.
yeah.
And Roger Rabbit, they're just like, so they tried to smush them together, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, the tricky part with Toontown is it's so postmodern and meta and everything like that that it doesn't really translate to
I think it would probably do better now.
kids content.
Yeah.
Kids can handle meta stuff.
100%. I always loved that movie.
Yeah.
I wasn't that smart of a child. Come on.
I was probably too young when I started watching it to understand everything.
Yeah.
But
I used to have a Jessica Rabbit sticker on the back of my first
did.
vehicle.
You
and
did,
it said, I'm not bad, I just drive that way. I got it in Disneyland. Yeah. Okay, question number 2. I asked you a question about Walt's suit that is in the Elias & Co. store.
I gave her a good college
That was
try.
actually an awesome guess. This is what you said.
Is it supposed to represent the suit that Walt stepped off the bus on when he was coming to make his fortune in California?
Super good guess. It is actually a replica or like heavily influenced by the gray suit that Walt Disney wore to the premiere of Snow White. So basically along the same vein that you're thinking. Yeah, important suit to Walt, right? And then my last question was, there's a reference to Hans Christian Andersen somewhere in DCA. What or where is it? This is what you said.
I don't know, probably on a wall somewhere.
It is on The Little Mermaid. Near the exit, you can see a cameo. 2 cameos, actually, like, the old-fashioned... The
Easter eggs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, like the old-fashioned, like the face, the side profile.
Oh, yeah.
Like the cameo art.
Right.
You can see 2. One is the profile of Hans Christian Andersen, and one is the profile of the Little Mermaid statue, which is in Denmark. He's Danish, and of course he is the one.
I love Danishes. Oh, you mean the...
I thought you meant me, because I have Danish history.
You do, yes.
You know two songs in Danish, actually,
Yeah.
from my family.
Lovely Christmas songs about shooting crows or something. I don't know.
Anyway, it's the profile of Hans Christian Andersen and the profile, and the silhouette of the statue, and he's of course the one who originally wrote The Little Mermaid. So yeah, that makes sense. It's like near the exit. So
that is pretty cool. The Disneyland and Disney parks in general are filled with all sorts of Easter eggs,
like that.
and that is cool.
Yeah, that's like my favorite.
I would
stuff.
never know that, but it's cool to know.
Yeah, so Not great on those, but I bet you're going to do better on these ones.
We'll see.
Okay. So I accidentally told you one. Well, luckily I had 5 trivia items, but I accidentally told you.
That's way too many trivia.
I accidentally told you one of them when we were talking earlier in the episode.
Oh, yeah. That means I would have to remember what you were saying.
It's okay. I took it off. Okay. So we talked Disneyland first opening. And we have all these rides in the 50s that came out at the same time based on movies that had happened or hadn't happened, but were on the works and things like that. One of the major animated movies that came out in the 50s did get an attraction in Disneyland. But originally, it was going to be a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would the attraction or like the movie have been that this was based on?
That would be Alice in Wonderland. They really tried to make walkthrough rides, quote unquote. Watch any sort of documentary about the making of Disneyland or the rides and stuff like that. It's they wanted to walk through this. They wanted to walk through this, and yeah, Alice in Wonderland. They really wanted to be a walkthrough, like playing with the size aspect and stuff. I'm going way too much into detail for this, but it was Alice in Wonderland.
Okay. So I also talked about Disney's famous TV show, Walt Disney's Disneyland. It started as. It alone is responsible for a television craze that became a pop culture craze in the 50s. It even had like a style after it and things like that. So there's a special that aired repeatedly on this show that is responsible for it. I'm asking you to name the TV show or the TV show special that was in this Walt Disney's Disneyland thing, or the character that became synonymous with this particular famous show. I'm getting to giving you a more specific hint, that in the 1950s became responsible for maybe a particular type of hat that young boys would wear.
Oh, I think we already talked about this, no?
Maybe.
Davy Crockett.
I don't know, maybe.
With his, like, coontail hat.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. Art Linkletter hosted the live broadcast for the opening of Disneyland.
Yeah.
While Disney himself was involved in the broadcast, they interviewed him a lot and things like that. Linkletter had 2 other assistants, Bob Cummings and a young actor who gained more fame actually later on in life. But he was a young actor when he did this. Who?
From the 50s. Oh, boy.
I've told you this so many times. You're going to kick yourself?
Oh, probably. I have no idea.
Okay. Do you want to just guess?
Not really.
Okay. No idea. You knew Art Linkletter, and you were like, come on, ask me that one.
Well, no, I wouldn't have known that off the top of my head. But yes.
If it makes you feel better, I wouldn't have known Bob Cummings.
No.
But I knew these other 2. Okay. All right. Well, Disney used traditional fairy tales and legends for the 1950s. They also turned to other children's literature. Name one of the authors of one of the books that provided the source material for any one of those pieces.
Oh, boy. I was just thinking of this. I couldn't remember the author.
And you're like, please don't ask me the author. You have a couple options.
Yeah.
And it's not Hans Christian Andersen, I'll tell you that.
No. What's his name? Creepy guy. He does the thing.
Oh, that's specific.
I mean, they were both kind of creepy.
They
really.
were actually. There was a lot of conjecture about both of them.
They made the whole movie about him with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, they sure did.
And what was his name? I don't remember. But they made a whole movie about him.
You're totally correct.
Yeah, I know.
Just not his name.
Finding Neverland is called the movie. Yeah. I don't know.
Do you want a hint?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
The author of Alice in Wonderland and the author of Peter Pan, which was a play originally, I believe.
Yes, it was.
I can't remember their names though.
Both a little creepy.
They were super
one's
creepy.
Significantly more creepy than the other.
They're both pretty creepy.
Oh no, they were both pretty creepy. But I'm saying one's significant. Yeah, it's yeah. They're not. Neither were upstanding gentlemen, especially by today's standards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, last question, but because I know you know it. What is the name of the cat from Alice in Wonderland?
Oh, we just watched it.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you.
Started with a D.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay, well, I felt it's my fault because I said I know you know it.
Yeah, I don't know. It started with I don't know.
It does start with a D.
It starts with a D and something. No, it's not Duchess, because that was your sister's cat's name.
Yes, that we rescued for her.
Yeah.
That was also named after a Disney character.
Mm-hmm. But it starts with a D.
Yes, it does. Okay, that's fine.
And it's a cute kitty, and she waves goodbye.
Bye. We actually have some great animals in there. We have that one. We have Peter Pan had Nana. Nana.
Yeah, Nana is.
I was trying.
Adorable.
British accent did not work. Bye, Nana.
Adorable.
Right? Isn't Nana
English
fantastic?
sheepdog? Yes. Oh.
Yes. I was gonna ask that, but I knew you knew that one. Yeah, some great ones. And then, of course, you have all of Lady and the Tramp. Basically, Disney was going through an animal phase in the 50s, I think.
That's a good phase to go through.
Fantastic, yeah. And then Cinderella, we've already talked about, had lots of animals in that one. Bruno and Lucifer. Okay, that's it for trivia. So if you think that you know these answers better, or if you agree with Brandon, or anything like that.
Hey, I was confident in one of them.
You were totally confident. You gave me lots more information than I asked for.
Yeah, just off the top of my head.
That was really good. It was really hard for me not to respond with that and add more information.
Right. Yeah, I just my brain for names right now is not going very well. So.
I blame the scotch.
Yeah, it's probably the scotch's fault. What can you do?
Okay, so if you want to comment on any of the trivia, or if you have some other trivia questions that you think you should ask one of us, or both of us, or whatever.
1950s or otherwise.
Yes.
Krysta really likes Star Wars trivia.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, I do, but I just find it interesting, but I'm really bad at it. At least my names that I'm asking you are, like, pronounceable.
Sure.
Feel free to message us on social media or through our email, which is all on our website.
On disneya.wixsite.com/podcast. You can also find us on social media at disneya.podcast, on Facebook at disneya, and Twitter at disneyapodcast. Thanks to El Mule for our custom theme song you heard at the top of the show. You can find Disney A episodes on your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and many more.
Woohoo!
Please review our podcast and subscribe. And if you know someone who might like listening to us blather on about random Disney stuff.
Okay, I didn't go on that many rants.
A little, yeah. Just go ahead and recommend them to listen to us. You can also listen to Disney A episodes on Magic of the Mouse Radio on Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern, with replays Wednesday and Friday also at 4. You can listen to Magic of the Mouse Radio on Live 365, MyTuner Radio, Radio Garden, and other radio station apps.
So there's a podcast that's also on Magic of the Mouse Radio that, like, they don't know I'm doing this, but I want to give them a shout out, and it's Disney Assembled.
Oh,
they're fun. They're like a father-daughter team.
That's a really cool combination.
It is a cool combination, and the best thing is they have a Disney dad joke every week, and I really like bad puns, so I appreciate that a lot. Yeah. So yeah, they don't know I'm shouting them out, but I'm shouting them out.
And they have a great logo, so
that's true. They really do.
And name.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, but join us next week when we also assemble.
Nice.
To talk about Marvel.
What a transition! We didn't even plan that.
Phase 3.
Oh my goodness. Oh yes, which is perfect because we're going to be getting so close to the end of WandaVision.
Which is good and bad.
Good and bad.
Anyway. So, I'm Brandon.
And I'm Krysta. So until the next adventure, TTFN, ta-ta for now. Thanks for listening to Disney A.
Thank you for being a friend. Okay.